Hey guys, today I have Laura Davis on the podcast with me. She is an amazing time management queen. She helps us with amazing strategies and tips on how to maximize your time as an entrepreneur, and especially as a woman, as a mom entrepreneur. So if you're one of those, stick around. We had a great conversation today. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast, where we bridge the gap between the creativity you love and the CEO mindset you need. I'm your host, Nada Salvatore, wedding photographer and business educator. Find full show notes and resources at accidentalceopod.com. Let's get into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Accidental CEO podcast. I'm your host, Nada Salvatore, and today I have Laura Davis with me. She's the owner of Time Management Academy, where she works with high-achieving working moms to ditch the hot mess and level up work-life balance using a simple and realistic time management framework. I'm so excited to have her here. We have known each other for a few years now, but also because time management is such a common issue, especially in the entrepreneur world. And for those entrepreneurs who do have a family to tend to, it's the whole other level of, time management issues. So I'm so glad that she's here today to talk to us. Welcome, Laura.
Thanks, Nana. I'm excited to be here. And it's crazy just how small our world is and how long we've known each other. And now we're here on a podcast together.
Would not have guessed that a few years ago, that's for sure.
So crazy.
So tell us a little bit about what you do now, who you serve, and how you help people. And then we might backtrack a little bit and find out the story behind how you got to become a time management queen.
Yeah. So I specialize in working with working moms, but even more specific than that, really the sweet spot in the women who work with me is they are women who work full-time in corporate America or have some type of full-time job, and they're also building and running a business. That's really the sweet spot of who I work with, because that is such a unique and specific scenario when it comes to managing your time. It takes a lot more intentionality. It takes a lot more strategy to be able to do that effectively when you're in that situation, and trying to balance motherhood on top of that and trying to take care of yourself. So that's really where my specialty lies, is helping those women who want to truly have it all.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's such a need too, because a lot of us, before you jump into full-time entrepreneurship, are in that situation where you're handling your full-time job, trying to grow this side business of yours, and you still have, your family and the people around you to accommodate and take care of. So I'm sure if we are not in that spot right now, you have been, and it will meet many people in that spot. So it's good to have this information so you can share and help those around you. So tell us a little bit about what initially drew you into the field of time management, and how did your personal experiences kind of influence the focus on this area?
First, women are told our whole lives there's this societal pressure that you can't be good at having a career that is a high demanding, successful career and be a good mom. There's always this underlying pressure that we have to choose between a career that we love and that we find fulfilling and being a good and present mom. And I really have a mission, and I believe that I have truly been put on this earth to prove to women that you can actually have it all. And you don't have to choose between those two things. You don't have to put your career on hold for 10 years while you raise kids. You don't have to sacrifice being present with your kids in order to have that career. You truly can have it all. And what the pinnacle was for that, for me, really the catalyst for that, was just over 7 years ago. My husband and I found out that the only way we could have kids was through IVF. And at the time, I was very aggressively climbing the corporate ladder, very aggressively. I wanted to be the youngest executive in marketing at this company, and I wanted that to just be my trajectory. And I remember this very distinct moment where Zach and I, that's my husband, we were sitting in the fertility doctor's office, and he had just told us that IVF was our only option. And he looked me dead in the eye and he was like, "Can you handle having a second full-time job?" Because he was like, IVF is a second full-time job. You have almost daily doctor's appointments. You have medications that are very time sensitive that you have to be willing and able to give to yourself through a shot, no matter where you are. you have to be able to adjust your lifestyle as if you're already pregnant. You have to be prepared for any surgeries or procedures that have to be done. It is literally a second full-time job. And of course, in that moment, you say yes, right? You're like, of course I can handle it. That's like, I want a baby. I'll handle that. But the reality of it is that it is so much to do and so much to handle. And I lied and I was like, yeah, I can do that. But in the back of my head, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can handle this. So I'm a researcher at heart. That's just my soul. I'm a researcher, and I decided to dig into the science of time management. And I was like, I have to be able to crack the code. There has to be like a cheat sheet. I need to figure out how to do this. And that's when I started to dive into the science and the data behind time management, which led me to creating my own framework a few years later, and Time Management Academy was born.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And I'm sure it's going to be inspirational to a lot of people. Just a lot of things in our lives throughout just the process of trying to grow a family does become a second time job, even if you're not going through IVF, the process of having a little one that you're trying to take care of, or a parent that maybe you're being the caregiver for. So there's a lot that can take your attention, and you don't have to believe in this narrative that you cannot do it all, because I'm with you. I think we are built to do more, and we have the capacity to do so if we choose to. So you mentioned developing your own time management framework after finding that a lot of the research primarily targeted men. So we talked a little bit about that. So can you share more about the process of kind of crafting this framework and how you address the unique challenges of the professional working moms?
Yeah, so with the research and the data, I'll give you one of many, but one of my favorite examples of this. Are you familiar with Parkinson's law in the time management and productivity world?
No.
So Parkinson's law says that a task will take as long as you allow it to. So the thought process behind this, which is good in theory, is that if you give yourself an hour to build an email, let's say, you'll fill up that entire hour building that email. So the law says that you should actually give yourself less time to do something, because then you'll get it done faster. So Parkinson's law comes from a 1955 paper called The Economist that was written by C. Northcote Parkinson, 1955. And basically what he is illustrating is, he says that it takes a woman all day to send a letter. And he goes through this entire story of this woman who tries to send out a letter, and it takes her all day because she gets distracted by vacuuming the house, and then she gets distracted by calling her friend, and she does all of these other things instead of sending the letter. And when I read that for the first time, I was like, well, of course it takes her all day. She's doing all of the other things that you don't have to do, and you get to write this paper in peace, judging her for how long it took her to send the letter.
Oh, gosh.
Of course you can judge her from the outside, because you have her dealing with all of the other stuff that you don't have to take care of. Meanwhile, she's doing all of those other things and can't get her letter in the mail. Of course, you think that Parkinson's law, so he created this law. And when I read that, that's really what made me realize that all productivity laws and methods and things like that are truly rooted in masculine energy. And they were created by men, they were created for men, they were studied on men. And so that's really what led me to creating my own framework. And that framework takes into account all of the different unique aspects of us as women, especially as working moms. So the framework that I have is based on 4 pillars of time management. The first pillar is the principles of time management. So these are things that I firmly believe in my philosophy do not change. One of those, like a couple of examples, are having a digital first approach. I truly believe and teach that as a mom, especially, you need a digital first approach in your time management strategy. Also, another principle is that structure creates flexibility. That is a line that I have drawn in the sand in my teachings. The second pillar is time management skills. So learning the actual skills of executing how to manage your time. So this might look like building a Friday planning session every single week. It might look like knowing how to effectively use to-do lists. The third aspect is the mindset. And this is something that I will say you might be good at managing your time. Like a lot of women who I work with are actually really good at managing their time. They're not good at managing their mindset around their time. And so that's the third component where I come in and I work with women. The final pillar is capacity awareness. Because again, this is super unique to women and to working moms, where we sometimes have blindness to how much capacity we actually have in the hours that we're given each day. So, you know, does your time management system that you have allow you to see your true capacity of what you can actually say yes or say no to?
I really like, especially that third pillar about the mindset, because, I'm a business and mindset coach, and I truly believe that, mindset is such an important part of just developing as a person and developing and growing your business. Can you just give us an example of how somebody can be good at managing their time, but not be good with the mindset around that?
Yes, actually, I was working with someone just yesterday who has this exact obstacle that she's working through, and she's a business owner. She gets a lot done every day, and she's actually really good at organizing her days, and she delivers her client work on time, and she has enough time with her kids. She's able to be very present with her husband. She feels really good about the home life side of things. But what I noticed a recurring theme was with her was that she constantly felt overwhelmed just in the act of executing the tasks that she had assigned herself. And so one of the big mental shifts that I give people and that I gave her, and I'll give the audience right now, is when you are talking to yourself about your time and you sit down to do work and you're like, I'm so busy. I don't know if I can handle this. I don't know if I can get all of this done. Your heart rate increases, your cortisol spikes, your hands start to sweat, and you use so much brain power being worked up over a perceived overwhelm that you have. Whereas instead, what I coached her and what she is now going to do is whenever those thoughts start to come in, she's changing those thoughts to, yes, I have a lot to do, but I have a plan to get it done. Yes, today might be busy, and I know what to do today. So, not being delusional about what you're saying. You don't want toxic positivity, but you do need to move slightly to the more positive of how you're thinking about your time. And that really changes, it doesn't necessarily change the way she's spending her time, but it changes the amount of mental energy that she has. And it changes the feelings and the end game of how she looks at and appreciates the work that she is able to get done each day.
Yeah, that's such a great tip and great information. And I think people need to be more aware of how much they can control. 100% agree with that. I remember even teaching my girls, whenever I asked them to do a task or something that they're really not very excited about, maybe they need to fold laundry and get their room organized. I tell them, like, take a deep breath and then think in your head, this is going to be fun, put some music on, and then just get yourself into the mindset that it's going to be fine. And that's really how I approach a lot of my day to day and the things I have to do. I do a lot. I have 6 different businesses. I have kids. I have a husband. And I always have something else that I'm thinking on the, on the background. And it could be very easily, overwhelming for me to just sit down and get things done every day. But with a combination of time blocking and organizing and having a good plan and really having this mindset of, like, instead of thinking, oh, I don't even know where to start, so I'm just going to do something else, or you just get paralyzed, just take a deep breath and start from somewhere. Give yourself, a little time, start on the first task and just go on. So it's a huge thing to have the right mindset to approach a busy day. I also wanted to talk to you and see what your opinion is on this concept of people love saying that they're busy. We kind of, I feel like, associated the word busy with something good, quote unquote. So when people ask you, like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And you're like, "I'm good." And, like, "Are you busy?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm busy." So it's like the social norm to say you're busy, and that means you're doing well. And I'm completely against that. I think that's terrible to say and believe, because I think if you start believing that, you just get into that overwhelmed state, and that's counterproductive. So, talk to me about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so we're in similar camps in that I do not believe in that, and so much so that I challenge all of my clients, and I have my own self standard that I will not answer that question. If somebody says, "How are you doing?" I will not allow myself to say, "Oh, I'm good, just busy, like getting whatever done." Instead, so I feel like it's good to tell people that that's not the right answer to give. But what I do is I also give my clients other answers to give. So instead, how are you feeling? So whenever somebody asks me that and I'm tempted to say, "Oh, good, just busy," instead I say, "I'm really good. I feel super balanced right now." Because that's actually the goal. The goal is for you to actually feel balanced. It doesn't, you could do 50 things in a day or you could do 10 things in a day, but are you feeling balanced? Because for some people, I think this is also important. For some people, busy is defined differently. So your definition of busy is very different than my definition of busy. Your definition of busy could be having 50 things on your calendar, and my definition could be having 5 things on my calendar. So whatever that definition of busy is, it's really difficult to give that context when you're answering that question of, how are you doing? Instead, get really specific. Actually have a conversation with that person and say, "I'm feeling really balanced. I'm working on this amazing retreat that I'm hosting in the fall, and it's focused on X, Y, and Z," and give them examples. And that way you're having an engaging conversation. You're not just trying to one up people by saying how busy you are.
You are not failing. You're foggy. Something is off in your business. You're spinning your wheels. You're buried in tasks. You're second guessing every single decision. Burnout is not always about doing too much. Sometimes it's about not knowing what actually matters. Chaos to Clarity audits are $97 deep dives where we cut through the noise and figure it out where your energy is leaking and why. No templates, no to-do list, just one sharp human conversation to help you name the real bottleneck, see what's in your way, and finally feel confident about what to do next. You walk away with fewer tabs open in your brain and more calm in your body because clarity isn't a luxury. It's a requirement for growing anything that lasts. Are you in? Go to accidentalceo.co/chaos. That's accidentalceo.co/chaos. I'll see you there. How does effective time management directly impact, business revenue, especially for women entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I love this question, and I think my answer might surprise you because normally, like in the business world, when we talk about revenue, we're talking about it from a dollar perspective, right? And so with time management, there is that popular saying that time is money. So I could easily default to that and say, well, time is money. And so when you have more time, you can make more money. But that isn't always the truth, right? But it's a little bit of the truth. So my belief is that a business strategy is only as good as its execution. And so you can build the best offer on the planet. You can have the best launch strategy that checks all the boxes and does all of the things. But if you don't know how to bring those things to life, you won't make revenue. And you won't make as much revenue as you could. And so the reason that I say this is because your brain, and this, your brain is designed to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So when it comes to a female entrepreneur, especially one who is a mom, they are going to avoid pain as much as possible. So doing and executing a business strategy that they have built, building the strategy is the fun part. That's the safe part because they're just building it. They're just planning it. Executing it is the painful part because that's the part where they might experience failure. That's the part where they might not reach the exact goal that they wanted to reach. And so this could mean feeling stuck in your business, doing busy work instead of actually implementing the plan that you need to implement for your business. By busy work, I mean things like consumption. So it could be listening to podcasts. Although if you're listening to this podcast right now, that's the right thing to do. You should be doing that. You should be doing that. It could also be like watching webinars or joining like masterminds. If you are consuming more than you are creating, then you are wasting time in your business. If you're designing posts in Canva more than you're actually selling things, you're wasting time. And so being able to manage your time and manage it well and effectively, and having that time management framework and process for yourself allows you to complete those high impact tasks like prospecting, like working with current clients, like client retention and client acquisition and sales messages. And the more that you keep those promises to yourself, the safer that your brain feels in doing them. And the better that you can manage your time with those tasks, the safer your brain feels. So the more likely you are to actually do them and then reach the goals that you want to reach because you managed your time well.
There's definitely those people that are, I feel like, addicted to just consume things and never actually put anything into practice because they're hiding behind, all that consumption. So that's great advice there too. Can you outline for us some maybe top time management strategies that have proven to be very effective, especially for women in business?
Yes, I will try to not go on my soapbox about this, but I feel like over the last, I'll say like decade, maybe a little bit less than a decade, I feel like women have been sold. People have used this marketing tactic on women that says you can build a business in the pockets of time. And that is a bunch of snake oil. You cannot build a business while you're like trying to use the bathroom on a lunch break during like your job if you work full. Like you cannot try to build a business in pockets of time. And so my number one strategy for the women that I work with is to create and stick to consistent business hours. This doesn't mean that you have to work like 8 hours a day, right? Nobody's saying that you have to work 40 hours a week to have a successful business. You can have a successful business on part-time hours, however you define that, but you need to have those dedicated hours. So if you're working full-time, or even if you're not, if you say, okay, 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is a dedicated business hour. That's the way that you should approach building your business. Not, hey, can I like answer some DMs really quick while I'm like going to the restroom? Or can I go hide from my boss or my kids in the closet for a few minutes and send out an Instagram story? Or, can I try to cook dinner and also, deliver client service to people and provide that feedback for them? You can be successful at that for a little bit, but not long term. And you also will not have that feeling of balance that is truly important as a mom in business, because making millions is really cool, but if you hate your life, are you really successful? And so I would say, out of anything with women business owners, the very first thing that we work on besides mindset is figuring out business hours, dedicated business hours, not pockets of time, not multitasking.
You are busy too. Talking about being busy, right? And the concept of being busy. So you have your time management academy and also a corporate role at a Fortune 100 company. Tell us about maybe some strategies, top one or two that you use to manage your time running between those two.
I also have to say, this is probably a little unpopular in our space of entrepreneurship, but I actually love both. I love my corporate job and I love my business. And so, as long as I can continue to do both in a healthy way, I'm going to, because they both give me different things and I love both of them. And so, if anybody's listening and you're in that balance, and it's okay to like both, it's okay to have multiple businesses and love all of them, right? It's a very similar concept. And so that's why I truly live and breathe the framework that I teach inside of Time Management Academy. It's not one of those things where I, am like a theoretical teacher and I don't actually execute the things that I teach. I am living and breathing it every single day. And so outside of those dedicated business hours, there's a couple more, I would say, tips that I can give for balancing both. Number one is keeping promises to yourself. So this is a big one in time management, keeping promises to yourself, doing things that you say you're going to do. Another one is having it all and understanding that you can have it all without having to do it all. And so that's where like the delegating and the outsourcing comes in. Also setting really intentional time boundaries. So I work 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at my job. Unless there are very extenuating circumstances, I clock in at 9 and I clock out at 5. And I do not work past that, like I said, unless there are extenuating circumstances or exceptions, but I don't make those very often. And I stick to that. I don't answer emails. I do not take calls. And I say that with my team being based on the West Coast. And I still uphold those boundaries. And then the final one I would say is communication and expectations of the people around you. So my husband is an amazing partner. He is absolutely amazing. He is not a mind reader. If I need an hour to have a client call, I need to communicate that with him. I can't just disappear and then get frustrated when I get interrupted, right? Because I'm trying to do a client call. And so having that communication with your spouse or with your family on the expectations of your goals and your desires for your business, but also your goals and your desires for your time is really important.
I 100% second having a good partner, but it's your job, like you said, to communicate and make it clear. And that goes for having a team as well, making sure that your team understands, what are the time management principles that everybody's going to abide by, what is the expectation for communication, for response time, and all of that. It just creates a better environment for everybody. So you do have to constantly be getting out of the way to accommodate things that are outside of those principles that all of you agreed upon. So very, very important to set those boundaries. Would you feel like your journey through IVF have an impact on your understanding of time management, and did it have any effect on how you built, the structure that you teach today?
Yeah, and so this is really interesting too, and I think some people in your audience might resonate with this because this is pretty common amongst entrepreneurs. So I am a rebellious personality naturally, so I rebel against people telling me what to do. Even
No.
even my husband, even myself, like even when I'm trying to tell myself to do something, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that just because I'm being told to do it, right? And that's important because IVF is really where the structure creates flexibility concept came from. I had to have structure. I had to because I had medications that I had to take at a very specific time in the mornings. I had medications I had to take at very specific times in the evenings. I had a full time job that I had to perform well at, that I had to show up for every day. The emotional roller coaster is insane during IVF. And you have all these hormones and chemicals running through your body. And so you have to have that structure. And what I found is that structure actually created a lot of freedom for me and a lot of flexibility for me, where I could still enjoy things that I didn't think were possible before. And I'll give you an example. So when I first started IVF, I was like, my life is over. Like my life has to shut down for however long this takes. We're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to go out. We're not going to do it. Like we just need to like be at home. And then as I started to live through this structure creates flexibility, I decided to venture out to a concert in Orlando. So about 2.5 hours south of here. I was like, okay, how am I going to get my medication? Like, what am I going to do to still stay to this structure of having to have medication at a very specific time? But I don't know the next time that this artist is going to be anywhere near me, and I really want to go to this concert. But you make it work. You figure out that structure because it gives you that flexibility. So I was able to go to the concert. We found the medical tent. We did my shots right there in like the first aid tent of the concert, and I went about my way. And that was like that moment and that experience was truly where the structure creates flexibility came from.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I think it will be very helpful to a lot of people. What time management advice would you give to women that are maybe just starting out as entrepreneurs? Maybe one or two things that they should be focusing on?
Yeah. So the two things that I would focus on is I'm going to sound like a broken record, but to create the dedicated business hours. So decide each week for each day, when are you working on your business and decide what specific things during those blocked times are you going to work on? So don't just say, 7 to 8 a.m. on Monday that's my business hour for Monday. Say 7 to 8 a.m. I am going to write this email copy and schedule it to be sent on this day. I am also going to plan out this aspect of my offer on, in the remaining time. Like give yourself very specific tasks to do during your business hours that you've set. And then the second thing that I would say, again, is to communicate your needs with those around you. So when you set these business hours, make sure that you're sharing that with your spouse and your family. Get your kids involved. Let them see the business side of you so that when you are on your phone or if you're on your laptop, they know that you're not just playing around, you're getting things done, and that's your business time.
Have you ever used one of these guys? I'm showing her a little time cube.
I
Have you
have
seen this
not.
one?
We use timer we just use an old school egg timer for things.
Yeah, this is really cute. So you can choose, a time that you want to work on a task, and it has, 5, 15, 30, and 60 minutes. And you just kind of set it up to whatever time frame you want, and it just goes off when that time is done. And it's really cool for like managing tasks, specifically, kind of focusing on one thing at a time. I've been using it a lot. I love it because I can sometimes you can set up, okay, I'm going to work for an hour. And then by the time you look up again, that time has passed. So I found that this has been very helpful. Is that something that you teach your audience as well?
Yes. And so actually one of the core components of the framework that I built addresses that exact thing that you just said, where if you're working on something and you're prone to like get lost in the work that you're doing, the framework that I have created actually accounts for that. And we have set up fail safes in place so that you don't experience that, so that you don't fall behind the rest of the day.
What would you say, or maybe some things that are unique to the program that you offer when you're working with the woman entrepreneur?
Yeah, so the biggest one is that I have I truly believe that a digital first approach is the best approach for women who have children and work. That is a foundational pillar of Time Management Academy. Now, that isn't to say that I don't think that, I do believe that there's a place for pen and paper, but once you become a mom, and if you work full time or you own a business, it is time for you to ditch your paper planner. I have not encountered truly a single person who can use a paper planner effectively.
That's a great challenge and very interesting concept. I love that. Very unique. I know we've had a conversation about that before. I'm the one I struggle with lists on paper and like marking things off. So I really like that principle too. Tell us where people can find you if they want to work with you and learn more about how can they be very efficient managing their time.
Yeah, so the best place to start with me is my 5-day free challenge. It's called the Master Your Work Week Challenge. And we actually tackle to-do lists, and I give you a complete strategy on how to create a to-do list effectively and then how to actually get it done. And in the Master Your Work Week Challenge, you also get a little taste of my framework that I teach inside of Time Management Academy. So it's a fantastic place to start. And they can get that at theloradavis.com/work week. I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes too. But it's less than 15 minutes a day, 5 days, and it'll transform your Monday through Friday and how you get things done on your to-do list.
That's awesome. Great challenge. And like you said, a great way to get started with understanding your approach to helping people with time management. So if you guys are interested, make sure you check the show notes. We're going to have that linked for you. Thank you so much, Laura, for spending this time with me. I think we had a lot of good information packed into this episode. I'm so excited for people to start thinking a little bit more about how they're structuring their day and how they're managing their time, and start using some of these strategies to just be more efficient and happier at the end of the week.
Yeah, that's really the goal, right? Is to be truly to be happier with what you're doing and how you're spending your time.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate you listening to us this week, and we'll see you again next week in another episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nada Salvatore, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.